Hello watch lovers! Sporty chronographs. These are watches that perfectly blend technical performance and sweet style. With their precise chronograph functionality and motor racing inspired dials that sometimes look like cute panda faces. Oh bless. So for all those reasons, it's not too far-fetched to say that a sporty chronograph is a must-have for every watch enthusiast. So join me as I look at some of the coolest chronographs on the market. We've got classic reinterpretations, refined, understated elegance, and I'll even chuck in the ultimate grail watch, why not? And if some of them happen to look a bit like the most popular racing chronograph from one of the most popular brands, then that's good too. So let's begin. First up is this, the Hamilton Jazzmaster Performer Autochrono. And this watch manages to pack in a lot of attractive details. So it's 42mm in a case of stainless steel and features a brushed finish which is uniformly circular around the bezel and the lugs and then accented nicely with polished bevels and edges. The combination of polished and brushed finishing can also be found on the hands and markers, which increases the legibility of the dial and, indeed, the niceness. The rest of the dial is blue with a silver-coloured minute track around the circumference, and it has a rather prominent sunburst texture that shimmers nicely in the light. There's also Zen Garden-esque subdials which are framed in polished steel, and there's a little date window at 4 o'clock. Overall, it's perfectly laid out and nicely proportioned, and despite the larger 42mm case size, it sits comfortably on my smaller 16cm wrist, and it looks great on this racing-style perforated blue leather strap. Powering the watch is the H31 automatic chronograph movement with a balance spring made from anti-magnetic alloy Vacheron. TM. And the whole thing costs around £2,000 RRP or around £1,500 pre-owned. This is an awesome watch that is seriously punching well above its price tag. Now, Tag Heuer knows a thing or two about making a cool sports racing chronograph watch. Steve McQueen will tell you, he knows. With such iconic models as the Monaco and the Carrera, but this line of watches predates both of them, initially starting life as a dashboard timer for car and aircraft back in 1933. This is the heritage Autavia, a racing chronograph that took the form of a wristwatch in 1962. And this particular piece is a 2017 reinterpretation of one of those early models. And as such, you get some lovely retro stylings, such as the Heuer logo, sans tag. This is the original branding reserved for only special vintage-inspired pieces like this. You get a bi-directional black anodized aluminium rotating bezel, which was a useful tool for drivers and pilots back in the day, as it could be used for timing and as a second time zone indicator. And then there's a very 60s style dial, monochromatic and with oversized subdials. But while it's all vintage on the front, round the back it's the cutting edge of modern watchmaking. Through the exhibition caseback you can see the very awesome Calibre 02, designed and built in-house by Tag Heuer. It's a chronograph movement with a column wheel transmission system and a vertical clutch, and it's decorated with Geneva striping across the bridges and a skeletonized rotor weight too. And the column wheel is red as well, which is dope. You can find the Tag Heuer Heritage Autavia pre-owned for around £3,500. Now we have Breitling, and Breitling brings that big boy style, always has done. So this is the Breitling Premier B01, and it comes with all the boldness you'd expect from a Breitling: a thick case, enormously chunky knurled crown, boxy pushers, and blocky applied indexes. But conversely, overall, this Premier B01 is a classic, sophisticated-looking sports chronograph with some quite pretty details. You get a mixture of mirror-polished and satin finishes with soft beveled edges on the lugs and around the pushers. There's 3 Art Deco-esque stripes on the side of the case and a vintage-inspired box crystal. And the 42mm diameter is quite reasonably proportioned for a Breitling, and it wears comfortably and hugs the wrist thanks to the integrated end link. Meanwhile, on the inside is the precise and reliable in-house Calibre 01, and it makes for one of the most stylish and universally appealing Breitlings on the market. This now discontinued Breitling Premier B01 costs around £4,000 pre-owned. Now we have the Tudor Black Bay Chrono Pink. And just like your favourite auntie, it's clean, it's fun, it's dependable, and it's got a big pink face. Now, typically pink is the colour of outlandish attire worn by some sort of free-thinking anarchist, and Tudor recognises that this watch is not for everyone. But Tudor is also all about that daring spirit, born to dare and all of that, and this is a stunning watch if you've got the nerve to wear it. So it's got all the robust design cues from Tudor's early dive watches of the 1950s, blended with the racing aesthetics of its Oyster Date chronograph model from the 70s, but with the modern touch of that pink dial. It's unexpected, but it works really well with the vintagey vibes of the rest of the watch. Inside you get the in-house manufactured MT5813 chronograph calibre, and at retail this costs £4,880. But only a small number of these pieces have been produced, so if you want to get your hands on one, you'll pay a bit more pre-owned, around £7,000. So chronograph functions are wonderful, obviously. They're endlessly fun to mess around with, sure. But when it comes to watches, using them to time things is secondary to using them to look cool. And look cool you will with this IWC Portugieser Chronograph. And you can also use it to time stuff as well, if you so desire. So double cool. This is a stunning watch in a deep red sunburst dial that's really rich and just pops from any angle. The display is clean with the small seconds and chronograph minutes subdials recessed at 12 and 9. There's simple Arabic numerals and slim fouet hour and minute hands and a very slender chronograph hand. It feels quite minimalist and sophisticated for a chronograph, but pair it with a black leather jacket and forget about it, fresh as all heck. Now, in the late 30s, the very first Portugieser watches ran on pocket watch calibers for greater precision, and consequently were quite large and striking for wristwatches. And this model at 41mm retains that bold look, but still feels quite compact and comfortable. Round the back you can see the 69355 calibre, a high-performance chronograph movement with IWC's bidirectional Paul winding system. Now, Portugieser chronos run from £7,000 new. This red one is discontinued, but you can find it pre-owned for around £6,000. Now, if you're looking for a high-end luxury steel sports watch with an integrated bracelet, but you're not interested in the mainstream hype that mires other models in that style, such as your Royal Oaks, your Nautiluses, your PRXs, etc., then get a load of this Laureato chronograph by Girard Perregaux. Now, you can't go wrong with a Jerry Perry, as the slogan doesn't go, but it is true though. Emerging in 1975, before the Nautilus and the IWC Ingenieur, this is a watch that offers just as much as some of those other highly sought after pieces. You get a bold case design with a hexagonal bezel, which is gently curved and beveled. The case is radiant in appearance with a very high level of finishing. The hobnail pattern dial offers great depth and texture and contrasts nicely against the glossy black subdials and metallic heat blued hands and markers. It's got tremendous presence on the wrist and it packs the wallop of a statement piece while still feeling elegant. Such exquisite high-end integrated sports watchness commands a price tag to match. The RRP for the Laureato chronograph is £15,000. Pre-owned it's around £11,000. But if we're going to start talking about exquisite high-end integrated sports watches in a panda dial style, then I present to you the Vacheron Constantin Overseas Chronograph, an iconic piece from one of the oldest watchmakers in town. This is a panda dial chronograph version of the awesome Overseas. In stainless steel and 42.5mm in diameter, it wears large, but it's beautifully detailed and the finishing is as good as it gets. The case features vertical and radial brushing as well as high mirror polished surfaces. The dial is a silver-toned lacquer on a sunburst satin finished base with contrasting black counters that have a finely snailed surface texture. There's 18-karat gold applied hands and hour markers. Then there's a circular satin finished internal minutes track and a velvet finished external minutes track. Hold on though, that's not all, because through the open-worked caseback we can see the exceptional 5200 calibre. a calendar chronograph with a vertical clutch, and a compass rose inspired rotor weight in 22 karat gold. There's many varying finishing techniques across the facets of the movement, like polished bevels, engine turning, Geneva striping, and even black polishing on the Maltese cross chronograph wheel. And consequently, it bears the coveted Geneva seal, an attribute to the crazy mad quality of the finishing on this watch. This watch is £35,000 pre-owned, and that's just a smidge over the RRP due to the high demand from discerning watch buyers with impeccable taste and an eye for fine craftsmanship and lots of money. So, what if none of the previous watches take your fancy, but yet you still yearn for a sporty chronograph that looks and feels exactly like a Rolex Daytona? Well then, what about a Rolex Daytona? This is the 116520 Daytona. And if you don't like weight lists and ceramic bezels, but you do like aluminium bezels and paragraphs of text on your dial, then the 116520 is the watch for you. An evolution of the 1988 16520 Zenith Daytona, so called for the modified Zenith El Primero movement powering the thing, this 116520 not only boasts silver subdials, screw-down pushers, and a shiny applied Rolex crown at the top of the dial, but also the in-house Rolex Calibre 4130, introduced with the 116520 in the year 2000. It's probably the most recognisable Daytona. It's just utterly timeless, like a Nokia 8210 or Lynx Africa. Bad examples, but you know what I mean. Now, the modern Daytona with the ceramic bezel costs £13,200 brand new and minus wait times, and that costs over £20,000 pre-owned. This classic 116520 costs around £17,000 pre-owned. So there you have it. Those were some of the coolest sports chronographs ever around, and you can find these amazing watches and many more from all the best brands over at watchfinder.com. Check it out, and I'll catch you next time. Goodbye.